Life is constantly responding to signals you don't consciously send. Not to your affirmations, not to your plans, but to the deepest message your body is broadcasting every second. Am I safe, or am I bracing for impact? Before words form, before choices are made, your nervous system has already decided how the world will meet you. Opportunity, connection, money, love, none of them arrive in a vacuum. They arrive through the state of your inner climate. And if that climate is tense, guarded, or quietly afraid, life does not punish you. It adjusts. You may have noticed this pattern without having language for it. When you feel internally calm, things seem to flow with less resistance. Conversations open, doors appear, people respond differently to you. But when you live in constant inner alert, even good things feel heavy, delayed, or just out of reach. This is not coincidence. This is regulation. In Jung's view, the psyche speaks first through the body. Carl Jung believed that what remains unconscious does not disappear. It expresses itself through fate. And your nervous system is one of the most honest translators of the unconscious. It reveals what you truly expect from life, not what you hope for. A regulated nervous system tells the world, I can receive. A dysregulated one whispers, I must survive. And life listens. When your inner world is braced, hypervigilant, or frozen, you unconsciously signal urgency, scarcity, and threat. Even in silence, even while smiling, people feel it. Situations mirror it. Life responds by offering you exactly what your system knows how to handle, not more. This is why effort alone does not create expansion. You can work harder, think smarter, want deeper, but if your body does not feel safe, growth feels dangerous. So the system resists it. Opportunities come, but you miss them. Support appears, but you can't rest into it. Love approaches, but your chest tightens instead of opening. This isn't weakness. It's intelligence shaped by past experiences. Your nervous system learned long ago how to protect you. It learned when to tense, when to rush, when to stay alert. And it kept you alive. But protection and expansion are not the same language. What once kept you safe may now be quietly limiting how much life can meet you. Jung said that transformation begins the moment we stop identifying with our defenses. And perhaps this is that moment. Not to force change, but to notice something radical. Life is not waiting for you to prove yourself. It is waiting for you to feel safe enough to receive. This is where our journey begins. Your nervous system does not distinguish between past and present the way your mind does. It does not measure time in calendars or years. It measures safety in sensations. A familiar tension in your chest, a shallow breath, a subtle tightening when something good approaches. And without you realizing it, your body reacts as if the old danger is still here. This is why so many women feel confused by their own reactions. You want more love, more visibility, more ease. Yet when life offers it, something inside pulls back. You hesitate. You overthink. You delay. Not because you don't want it, but because your system is asking a quiet question. Is this safe? In Jung's view, the body becomes the stage where unresolved experiences continue to play. What was never processed does not vanish, it waits. And when opportunity arrives, it activates the same pathways once associated with loss, disappointment, or overwhelm. So the nervous system intervenes, not to sabotage you, but to protect the version of you that once had to endure too much, too soon, alone. This is why force never works. Pushing yourself to be confident, be fearless, or just go for it often backfires. Because safety cannot be commanded. It must be felt. And the body only softens when it trusts that expansion will not cost you your ground. A regulated nervous system creates a specific inner posture. Your breath deepens without effort. Your gaze steadies. Your movements slow, not from hesitation, but from presence. And something subtle shifts. People respond differently. Situations resolve with less friction. Life seems to cooperate rather than test you. This is not magic. This is resonance. Jung spoke of synchronicity as meaningful coincidence, moments where inner and outer worlds align. But synchronicity does not arise in chronic tension. It arises when the psyche is open, receptive, and internally coherent. In other words, when the nervous system is not bracing for impact. When you feel safe inside, you stop scanning for danger. And when you stop scanning, you finally see what is actually available. This is why healing the nervous system is not a side practice. It is foundational. It shapes how much joy you allow, how much rest you tolerate, how much support you believe is possible without strings attached. Safety inside teaches life how to approach you. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, life adjusts its tone. When safety becomes internal, urgency dissolves. You stop rushing life as if something will be taken from you if you slow down. And this alone changes everything. A nervous system that feels safe no longer chases outcomes. It allows them. And allowance is not passivity. It is confidence without tension. You begin to notice how often effort was driven not by inspiration, but by fear of falling behind, fear of being forgotten, fear of missing your moment. Yet life does not open to desperation. It opens to grounded presence. In Jung's view, what we compulsively pursue often represents an inner split. The psyche searches outside for what it does not yet feel inside. So when you push relentlessly for recognition, stability, or love, it is often because your inner world has not yet learned to rest in them. Safety changes the direction of movement. Instead of leaning forward, braced, and alert, you settle back into yourself. And something unexpected happens. Your intuition becomes clearer. When the nervous system is regulated, signals are no longer drowned out by noise. You feel when to act and when to wait. You sense when an opportunity is aligned and when it is simply familiar chaos in disguise. Decisions feel quieter, but more certain. This is why some women appear lucky. They are not more gifted. They are more settled inside their bodies. They don't exhaust themselves proving worth. They don't override discomfort to please. They don't mistake anxiety for excitement. Their system recognizes stability as desirable, not boring, not suspicious, not temporary. And life mirrors this recognition. Opportunities that require panic slowly fade. Opportunities that allow steadiness begin to appear. This is the hidden law few speak about. Life does not respond to what you want. It responds to what you can hold without collapsing. And your nervous system determines that capacity. When you feel safe, you stop negotiating your boundaries internally. You no longer betray your own pace. You don't abandon yourself to keep momentum. And because of this, others sense coherence. They trust you more. They meet you with less resistance. Not because you demand it, but because your presence feels complete. This is the beginning of true expansion. Not louder, not faster, but deeper. And once your system learns this language, life begins speaking to you in the same tone. There is a moment when you realize that exhaustion is not caused by doing too much. It comes from doing everything while feeling unsafe. A regulated nervous system does not drain you. Dysregulation does. You can rest and still feel tired if your body remains on guard. You can succeed and still feel empty if your system never fully lands in the experience. This is why so many achievements fail to satisfy. They were reached in survival mode, not in presence. In Jung's view, the psyche seeks wholeness, not performance. Carl Jung wrote that when we live disconnected from our inner ground, we mistake adaptation for authenticity. We adjust, we comply, we endure, but we don't inhabit our lives. And life responds accordingly. When your nervous system is constantly preparing for loss, life offers situations that require endurance. When your system expects collapse, stability feels foreign. When your body is used to tension, peace feels undeserved. So the work is not to convince yourself that you are safe. It is to teach the body that safety is now possible. This happens slowly, through breath that reaches the belly, through pauses you no longer fill with urgency, through learning to stay present when nothing is demanded of you, through allowing ease without immediately waiting for consequences. At first, calm can feel uncomfortable, almost suspicious. This is not intuition, it is withdrawal from chaos. Your nervous system was trained in environments where relaxation meant vulnerability. So when stillness arrives, the body scans for danger. But if you stay, if you don't rush to fill the silence, something new forms. Trust. And trust changes how life approaches you. People stop testing you. Situations stop escalating. Opportunities no longer arrive as emergencies. Life becomes less dramatic and more generous. This is the paradox few understand. Chaos feels alive, but safety is what allows life to expand. When you are regulated, you no longer attract what confirms your wounds. You attract what matches your capacity to remain present. And presence is magnetic, not because it demands attention, but because it does not leak energy. This is when life stops feeling like a series of obstacles and begins to feel like a dialogue. And for the first time, you are not bracing for the next impact. You are available, and life knows exactly what to do with that. Safety inside changes how you relate to waiting. You no longer experience pauses as rejection. You no longer interpret silence as danger. A dysregulated nervous system rushes to fill every gap. It checks, fixes, anticipates. It tries to stay one step ahead of disappointment. But when regulation settles in, waiting becomes neutral, even fertile. You understand, without forcing yourself to believe it, that not everything requires immediate movement. And life responds to this patience. Opportunities that are meant to last do not arrive in panic. They arrive quietly, asking for steadiness rather than speed. A regulated system can recognize them and stay. In Jung's view, impatience is often a signal of inner fragmentation. The psyche wants resolution because it does not trust continuity. But when your nervous system learns consistency, you stop demanding instant proof. You allow processes to unfold. And unfolding is where real transformation lives. This is where your relationship with uncertainty changes. You no longer confuse the unknown with threat. You no longer assume that lack of control means loss. You begin to feel curiosity instead of fear. And curiosity is a sign of safety. When your body feels safe, the future does not feel hostile. It feels open. You stop rehearsing catastrophes. You stop negotiating with imaginary outcomes. Your energy returns to the present moment, where life is actually responding to you. This is why regulation alters opportunity itself. You show up differently. Your voice carries less strain. Your decisions come from clarity rather than pressure. And people sense this immediately. They trust you more, not because you explain yourself better, but because your system is no longer pleading for reassurance. Life mirrors this groundedness. Delays feel purposeful instead of punishing. Redirection feels informative instead of personal. Loss feels like movement, not collapse. Jung said that when the psyche is aligned, resistance becomes guidance. But alignment does not begin in thought, it begins in the body. When your nervous system learns safety, your intuition finally has space to speak without being drowned out by alarm. This is how life begins to collaborate with you, not by removing challenge, but by removing the constant inner battle. And in that quiet cooperation, you start to sense something profound. You are no longer surviving your life. You are inhabiting it. When safety becomes familiar inside you, your relationship with effort transforms. You stop pushing yourself past your own signals. You stop confusing endurance with devotion. A regulated nervous system knows when enough is enough, not as limitation, but as wisdom. You no longer override exhaustion to prove commitment. You no longer silence discomfort to maintain momentum. And because of this, your energy becomes cleaner, more precise, more respected. Life responds to this self-respect immediately. Situations that once required force begin to reorganize. You are no longer met with constant friction because you are no longer moving against yourself. And this alignment is felt, not explained. People sense when your yes is real. They sense when your no is final. They sense when your presence is chosen, not extracted. This is why boundaries become effortless when the nervous system is regulated. You don't need to defend them. You embody them. In Jung's language, this is the movement toward individuation, the moment when the inner and outer selves no longer compete. When your actions reflect your internal state instead of compensating for it. And life responds differently to someone who is internally congruent. You stop attracting situations that require self-abandonment. You stop being tested on how much you can tolerate. You stop repeating cycles that depend on your silence. Because your system no longer signals availability for strain. Instead, it signals coherence. And coherence is rare. When you feel safe inside, you don't over-explain. You don't rush connection. You don't attach yourself to outcomes prematurely. You let people, opportunities, and paths reveal themselves over time. And this patience is not passive, it is discerning. Life respects discernment. You may notice fewer options, but better ones. Fewer demands, but more meaningful invitations. Less noise, but clearer direction. This is not loss. This is refinement. A nervous system at ease does not need constant stimulation to feel alive. It recognizes depth. It recognizes quality. It recognizes when something can be built without cost to the self. And because of this, life begins offering you experiences that do not require collapse afterward. This is when you understand something quietly powerful. Regulation is not about calming down. It is about becoming someone life can safely meet. Without harm, without urgency, without depletion. And once this state becomes familiar, you cannot unlearn it. Life won't ask you to. There is a quiet shift that happens when safety becomes embodied rather than practiced. You stop asking life to reassure you. You begin to trust your own ground. A dysregulated nervous system is always negotiating with the future. It asks, will this last? Will I lose this? Will I regret this? And so even in moments of joy, part of you remains on standby, guarded, prepared. But when regulation settles in, anticipation loosens its grip. You learn to stay with what is here without borrowing trouble from what hasn't arrived. This changes how opportunity feels in your body. Instead of excitement mixed with dread, there is steadiness. Instead of intensity, there is clarity. You can feel when something aligns without your pulse racing. And this is important because not everything that activates you is meant for you. Sometimes it's just familiar tension wearing a new face. Jung warned that the psyche repeats what it does not understand. And for many women, the body learned to associate aliveness with alertness, desire with anxiety, possibility with pressure. Regulation gently rewrites that equation. You begin to recognize a new signal, calm interest. It doesn't shout. It doesn't demand urgency. It doesn't rush intimacy. And because your nervous system can now tolerate neutrality, you don't mistake chaos for chemistry. You don't mistake unpredictability for depth. You don't mistake effort for meaning. Life responds to this discernment by offering fewer illusions. You no longer need dramatic turning points to feel alive. You begin to appreciate continuity, consistency, quiet progress. And this steadiness allows something rare to grow, trust in yourself. When your system feels safe, you don't abandon yourself when things get uncomfortable. You stay, you listen, you respond rather than react. And life notices this self-loyalty. It stops testing whether you'll disappear under pressure, because you no longer do. This is where opportunity matures, not as sudden rescue, but as something that integrates into your life without disruption, without requiring you to fracture yourself into pieces to hold it. And perhaps this is the deepest shift of all. You stop needing life to be intense in order to feel meaningful. You allow it to be real. And reality, when met from safety, has a way of becoming generous. When safety lives inside you, your relationship with control softens. You no longer grip life tightly, afraid it might slip away. You allow movement without micromanaging every step. A nervous system that feels unsafe tries to predict everything. It prepares for disappointment before joy has a chance to arrive. It rehearses endings while beginnings are still unfolding. But regulation teaches a different rhythm, one where trust replaces anticipation. In Jung's view, control often masks fear of the unknown. The psyche clings to certainty because it does not yet trust its own resilience. But when your body knows it can recover, adapt, and remain intact, the unknown stops feeling hostile. And life responds to this openness. You may notice that outcomes begin to surprise you, not with shock, but with elegance. Things arrive in ways you didn't plan, yet somehow suit you better than what you once forced. This is not luck. This is responsiveness. When you stop constricting around results, life gains room to move. A regulated nervous system can hold disappointment without collapse. And because of this, you no longer need to prevent it at all costs. You take chances without self-betrayal. You engage without attachment. You invest without losing your center. This is freedom. And freedom has a frequency life recognizes. You stop over-identifying with success or failure. Neither defines your worth. Both become information, not verdicts. And this neutrality is powerful because it allows you to remain present no matter what unfolds. Life no longer needs to shock you awake. You are already here. This is where trust deepens, not blind trust in outcomes, but trust in your ability to meet whatever comes without abandoning yourself. And that trust changes the quality of every opportunity. Nothing needs to be dramatic to matter. Nothing needs to be guaranteed to be worthy. You move with steadiness. You choose with clarity. You release without fear. And life, sensing this internal security, begins to offer you experiences that match it. Not fragile, not fleeting, but real. This is what happens when safety stops being a goal and becomes a state. As safety settles into your system, something subtle but decisive changes. You stop negotiating with life from fear. You no longer ask, will this take something from me? You begin asking, does this belong with me? A dysregulated nervous system accepts what is familiar, even when it hurts. It confuses recognition with alignment. But a regulated system has a new reference point. It compares experiences not to the past, but to inner stability. And anything that threatens that stability is no longer seductive, no matter how exciting it looks. This is how discernment becomes embodied. In Jung's view, maturity is not about eliminating desire, but about refining it. The psyche evolves when it learns to choose what nourishes rather than what excites the wound. And your nervous system plays a central role in this evolution. It tells you, without words, when something will cost you your peace. When you feel safe inside, you no longer override these signals. You don't force yourself to adapt. You don't minimize discomfort. You don't betray your intuition to maintain attachment. Life responds to this integrity. Situations that once lingered in ambiguity either stabilize or fall away. Relationships clarify themselves without confrontation. Paths that require chronic self-sacrifice quietly close. And while this can feel like loss at first, it soon reveals itself as relief. You begin to notice how much energy was spent managing instability. Now that energy returns to you, creativity deepens, focus sharpens, rest becomes restorative. You don't need constant validation to keep moving forward. Your system has learned something essential. You are not in danger just because something is uncertain. And this realization changes how you meet the world. You show up without armor. You listen without bracing. You speak without rehearsing defense. And people feel this immediacy. They feel your groundedness. They feel that being with you does not require performance or pressure. Life senses it too. It no longer needs to test your resilience. You trust it. This is when opportunity stops feeling like a gamble and starts feeling like a conversation. A conversation you are finally relaxed enough to hear. There comes a quiet clarity when you realize that life has never been withholding from you. It has been responding to how tense you were inside. responding to how guarded your breath had become, responding to how much of your energy was devoted to staying alert rather than staying open. And now, something is different. You feel it in moments of stillness that no longer frighten you, in pauses that don't trigger panic, in the way your body no longer rushes to prepare for what hasn't happened. This is not the absence of challenge. It is the presence of inner safety. In Jung's view, true change does not occur when we force the outer world to comply, but when the inner world reorganizes itself around truth. And the truth is simple, though not easy. Life meets you at the depth of your nervous system, not at the height of your effort. When you feel safe inside, you stop asking life to prove itself. You stop demanding guarantees. You stop bargaining with fear. And life responds with coherence. You begin to notice how much arrives without struggle when you are no longer braced against it. Support feels natural instead of suspicious. Opportunities integrate instead of overwhelm. Love feels grounding instead of destabilizing. This is not because life has changed, but because you have. You have become someone who can receive without collapse. Someone who can move forward without self-abandonment. Someone whose presence is not fragmented by inner alarms. And this state is not dramatic. It is calm. It is quiet. It is deeply powerful. From here, life does not need to shout to reach you. It doesn't need to shock you into awareness. It doesn't need to repeat the same lessons louder. You are listening now. And when your nervous system feels safe, life doesn't rush you. It walks with you. This is not the end of the journey. It is the moment you finally feel grounded enough to continue it. And from this place, everything that comes is no longer something you must survive. It is something you are ready to live.